Legend is here. Let me bring the legend in real quick.
Yo,
Lib,
yo,
how we doing, my guy?
man, what's good, D?
Man, I can't call it, man. Can't call it. Just going with the flow.
That's
First of
what's
all,
up.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming on my platform. Telling your story definitely means a lot to me and what I'm trying to do. I was watching your podcast on YouTube all the time, so I was like, it's only right to reach out to a Chicago legend and
Appreciate it.
get you on here. So I just want to say thank you again for taking time out to do this for me.
No doubt, no doubt. And can you hear me, pretty good?
Hey, I can hear you all good,
Good, good,
all
good,
good.
good.
For you, Lib, growing up Chicago, for you, how was your upbringing for you? How did you get involved with the sport of basketball? Did you play any other sports like that? And what made you fall in love with the game?
Growing up on the South Side, on the low end, I don't like when people name, South Side, West Side. So just growing up in Chicago on the low end, and uh, my dad played basketball, my uncles played basketball, my brothers played basketball. Everybody in my family pretty much played basketball except me. And on this particular day, they needed an extra man. I was probably about, I would say 11, maybe 11 or 12 years old. And they needed an extra player. You know how they do it. They play the 5-on-5. And my dad was like, go find Marcus. We need an extra man. And they threw me out there. Didn't know nothing. They threw me out there and got knocked down a couple of times, got blew by a couple of times, got scored on a lot, and but it was this particular play. I chased down one of my cousins and I blocked the shot and it felt good. And I was like, whoa. And everybody was cheering me, giving me high fives. And so after the game, I told my dad I want to learn how to play. And he said, if you're serious about it, I'll teach you. And he started teaching me stuff, knocking me down, giving me that mental toughness. He knew exactly what he was doing, elbowing me. He really wanted me to quit. But I stuck with it. And then I had two older brothers that played. So he got me as far as he could get me. And then my older brothers took me the rest of the way. And then I had some mentors, of course, throughout my career.
Now, Lib, what was that moment for you when you really realized, like, okay, this is what I really want to do? You know what I mean? Because in the beginning stage, it's all good when you're having fun. But when you really keep going with it, you learning everything, how to dribble, how to shoot, how to learn how much time you got to put in. Where was that moment for you when you was like, okay, like this is really what I want to do now?
Well, I went to a basketball camp at Lakeshore Athletic Club, and it was a gentleman by the name of Mel Davis. He was a former Harlem Globetrotter from Chicago. He had a camp, and I was already tight with his son, who was the same age as I. And I did the camp, and he started complimenting me, said, man, you can be pretty good at this. And he was showing me some dribbling moves and, the figure eight that they were doing taught back then, fingertips and all that. And then I got taller. So I had them handles and I got a little taller. So my eighth grade year came around and I think I scored like 50 something points in a middle school game. And that's when I knew. I said, I think I want to play this game.
Yeah. So I read growing up that you actually went to Crane your first year of high school, and then you made the transition to King. Uh, just talk about what led to that choice as far as leaving Crane, winning the city title, and then making that move to King, which was a powerhouse, around that time.
Well, again, go back to my dad.
Yeah.
It was an all-star game, eighth grade all-star game. I played out south. And the head coach, the varsity head coach from Crane, was at that game. I didn't know, but he sat right next to my dad and he kept complimenting me on the court. And my dad was like, which one are you talking about? And he's like, that tall kid right there, the tall, skinny kid. And my dad said, that's my son. So he said, oh, I like him. So soon when the game was over with, the all-star game was over with, my dad didn't say nothing else. He said, here's your new coach right here. And I was like, okay, so you don't question your parents, once he said that's where I was going, you know, no matter, I didn't even know where it was located at the time, you know, but he kind of, my dad went to Crane too. So it was an easy sell, you know, from the coaching and my dad standpoint, because my dad went to Crane. So it was like, you going to Crane. And when I went there, man, I met so many great, you know, people. You know, my family was already, most of my family was from the West Side anyway. So I had relatives on the West Side. So went to Crane my freshman year, right by, you know, Rockwell Garden, and just seeing, you know, guys, how they competed on that West Side. It gave me a different perspective of basketball, because these guys weren't as tall as, you know, you see guys on the other side, on the South Side. You know, these were like short, grind, you know, gritty type players. And when I got that, you know, taste, I was like, I like it over here. And they was talking a little trash too. So that's how I ended up over at Crane. And we won a city championship. We beat, actually, we only lost one game that year, and that was to Manly, at Manly. And to this day, I'm still say they cheated us, you know, but they had a great squad too. But yeah, when I went there, I was expected to stay there. You know, I wasn't expected to transfer and leave and all that. But I had an older brother who was at Crane with me, and then he left and went back to King. You know, and of course, there was a lot of things that was going on at, you know, Crane, you know, the game banging, you know, from the metal detectors, you know, being in there. And I'll tell you a story about one of the coaches that recruited me there. And this is a true story. You know, he always would sell donuts in the morning. And on this particular day, gunshots were being fired there. And I'm like, man, those gunshots in the hallway. I hear like tap, 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 tap. And the coach, he was there like it was nothing, you know, going on. Get your donuts. He's still trying to sell donuts. And I'm like, I know those are gunshots. You know, so I'm ducking and trying to get up out of there, man. And I was like, these people on this West Side ain't got used to this. You know, I can't afford to be getting hit by a bullet, man. I love my life. I want to be around here for a long time. So that played a little bit of a part of me leaving. But also, you know, assistant coach, he was mean to one of my players, one of my teammates, and I just didn't like the way he was treating them. So that also played another part of it. So I ended up leaving, but Cox came after me hard. You know, Coach Cox, who was a, you know, King coach. I know you're going to probably dab into that. So, but that's how I ended up at Crane, and I still cool with every last one of those players to this day.
Yeah. Okay. And then you leave Crane, you know, after you won a city title. You know, that wasn't even a piece of what you were going to accomplish at King. You go to King, you guys win state, you guys come in second place, you win, you know, All-American and stuff like that. You win all these awards at King. Just talk about overall the whole career you had at King and how was it for you and stuff like that, and all the awards and success that came with that.
Well, like I said before, the Chicago, I love Chicago, man, and just getting notarized throughout the city was, you know, was cool with me, you know. But my high school coach, who was Sonny Cox, rest in peace, he's no longer with us. He saw something even bigger than that. You know, he told me, I'm gonna put you on that national, you know, stage, you know, and me being who I was, just a young kid, just loving the game and wanted to compete no matter where I was, you know, placed. So he got me to go to one of these top elite, you know, camps, BC. It was in Rensselaer, Indiana, somewhere like that. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But it was in Indiana, and that was my first national camp. And I went on, it was Sean Kemp, Sean Higgins, Jerome Harmon. I can keep going on and on. There was so many, you know, great high school basketball players at this one spot. So it was my time to show out, and I showed out. And then from that camp, I went straight to the Nike camp, that's where they actually rank, you know, the up and coming for next year, the national players of the years and the #1 players and all that stuff. So I got an opportunity to play against, Dennis Scott, Sean Higgins. Lloyd Daniels was there, but he ended up leaving. Chris Corchiani, Rodney Monroe. It was so many guys there. Chris Jackson at the time. So it was a lot of players there, man, in this one spot in Princeton, New Jersey. And I knew I had to show out and represent for Chicago. So I was just balling, man. And, from me having a little, taste of both sides of Chicago, a lot of players can't say they had a taste of both sides of Chicago playing high school basketball. And I had that because I was at Crane my freshman year, and then I went over to the South Side and played at King High School. So I had a taste of both sides. And when I got there, man, I was just mentally prepared for whatever was going to be thrown at me. So they wanted to rank the players there. So I went over there and showed out. So that's one thing that Cox, told me. And then he took us, me and Lavertus Robinson, to after that camp, I became the #1 player in the country after that camp. But then Cox took us to a state championship game. This is how clever this man was. He took us to the Assembly Hall, which was called Assembly Hall downstate in Champaign, Urbana. And Simeon was playing. I can't remember who they was playing, but it probably was Kenny Battle and them Team Aurora or St. Stephen's. Everett Stevens, Evanston team. They were all down there and downstate. And I smell popcorn and I see all these fans in the stands cheering for their teams. And I'm like, damn, man, this is cool. I'm looking at Lavertus. I said, man, we got to get here, because this is different from the city championship. This is like you there, this is like an NCAA game. You're playing in a college arena. And I'm like, man, we got to get back here. So the next year, sure enough, Cox, knew what he was doing. We got a taste of it, and we got down there next year, the following year. Of course, we had to get through Simeon, and whoever wins the city championship usually goes downstate and wins the state championship. But we didn't see it like that. We was like, man, we got to go down there and compete. That's a state championship, and that was in 1986. So it was a long road. We had to go through some powerhouses. We had to go through Simeon to get there. We had to go through Evanston. We had to go through Kendall Gill and Rich Central. So we had to go through some teams to get to that state championship.
Thanks, man. I also read, Liv, that is that record that you have still active? With I think it was like the largest, the biggest scoring margin within 4 games. I read that you like 143 in 4 games or something like that.
Yeah, I think it may still be, in effect because it was only 2 classes at the time. It was 1A and 2A. 2A was the biggest class, right? But now you have 5A?
Yeah.
4A was number 1.
Like that. Yeah.
I think they only go to that now. So those are going to be your better teams now, your 4A teams or 5A teams, whichever one it is. They're going to be your better teams now. So that now your 2As, you may not get those, or may not get a type of player like I was to put up those type of numbers. So, yeah, I think that record still stands to this day.
Man. So, Liv, you spoke on, your high school career. You kind of touched on, you guys went downstate. You got a little taste of what the little college atmosphere was going to be like. Did you make your transition going to the U of I? Talk about, what led to that choice, what other schools were talking to you or that you may have been looking at, and what ultimately was the reason that you chose U of I?
Well, D, man, I had so many schools really after me, and my parents wasn't involved as much because they didn't know anything about the process of being recruited to play a sport, and so they let my high school coach pretty much handle a lot of that. But I was pretty much recruited by a lot of people, but a lot of schools backed off because they assumed that I was going to go straight to Illinois. You know, it was already set in stone that I was going to go there. That's what they were assuming. But my thinking, my process was, oh, I'm going to go to my visits. I'm going to take my visits and see what school I really like. And one of the schools I really, really liked was in the Big East. It was Syracuse. And Derek Coleman, Sherman Davis, Ronnie Cycli, you know, those guys were, you know, still there. And just me seeing the way they were practicing and playing and throwing the alley-oop and letting guys pushing the ball up the court. So I was like, I want to be, that suits me more so than any other program that was recruiting me. And Illinois was definitely hard on me because they didn't want me to leave the state. But DePaul was also on me. And it came down to a decision where my mom and dad basically told me, you know, we want to see you play. So they kind of made that decision a little bit easier for me. But if you talk to the assistant coach, Jimmy Collins, who's no longer with us either, who recruited me very hard to come to the University of Illinois, he said I probably was one of his hardest guys to convince to come to Illinois. So that's when it hit me that I'm probably going to stay close to home because my mom and dad wants to see me, my family wants to see me. But my heart, I tell people this a lot, my heart was Syracuse. I really wanted to go to Syracuse, and but I did want my mom and dad to see me, so that played a big part of me staying home and playing at the University of Illinois.
Okay. So Liv, you play at U of I, you know, a bunch of other guys on your team with you. You guys make it to the Final Four, you know, and then you get to your next step in life where you get drafted, you know what I mean, which is everybody's main goal in life. For you to be able to have a successful high school, college, and make it to the pros, how did you maintain to stay level-headed? How did you make sure that you didn't get too big-headed, that you stayed focused, that you didn't let the streets or outside noise, you know, kind of sway you of what your goal was in life?
Well, it was easy, really. You see where you came, you know, where I came from. I came from the projects, the Hilliard homes. Oh, actually, that building is still there, and they actually turned it into some condos. But the surroundings, you know, my surroundings, people telling me, you know, don't be like me, you know, so you hearing, you know, that, and then you remember what people used to say back in the day, it takes a village to raise a young man or a woman, a young girl to be a lady. So my surroundings, the people that was around me was giving me advice on things that they did wrong so I wouldn't do it, you know, and they knew that I was driven to play basketball because they saw it, you know, they saw how much I spent hours on the court. And so they made sure that I didn't get the street part of it. And plus my older brother, you know, I had an older brother who the streets got him, you know, he was in drugs, doing, you know, using drugs. And so I saw a lot, you know, and I was like, I know I don't want to do that. So I knew I was, you know, protected. And then, of course, you know, you remember what happened to Ben Wilson when he got shot and killed with gun violence. So I was that next dude coming, you know, after him. So the city basically put their arms around me and said, we got to protect this young man and not let anything happen to him. So it was like I was like a breath of fresh air for a lot of guys and, you know, people who were sports fans that wanted to see, you know, the number one player be, you know, protected and not, you know, a victim to senseless violence like what happened with the late, great Ben Wilson. So that's why I stayed away from that. You know, now is, you know, it's time for me to, you know, play, you know, in a big arena, a big event, the Final Four, or just say the tournament in general. I wasn't playing as much as I thought I should have been playing, you know, and I came off the bench off that great team in 1989 with Nick Anderson, Kenny Battle, Lowell Hamilton, Stephen Bardo, and Kendall Gill. So I didn't play. I played like maybe 18, 19 minutes a game. And in this particular game against Louisville, Kenny Battle went down and Lowell Hamilton, both before we even played the game, you know. So I was the next man up. So Coach Henson came to me and said, I'm starting you tomorrow in the game. And I was ready, you know, because I was built for something I was built for things like this because of where I came from, you know, playing street ball and on the playgrounds. And so I was ready. And sure enough, it was against Never Nervous Purvis. If you remember, as a freshman, Never Nervous Purvis showed out in the tournament. And I think they won the national championship with him. And as a freshman, and I was like, man, I don't care who I'm going against. And I ended up scoring like 14 points and did well in that game. And we went on to the next round. And that's one thing I remember, you know, about myself and our team, that we all were about the same height, interchangeable. So it was hard to guard us. And people then that at the time, and now you see a lot of people, you know, playing that way now.
Yeah. Man, I was just thinking about, I actually got Ben Wilson hanging up in my room right here. Just talk about how far are you behind him?
Ben, I think 2 years. I'm 2 years behind Ben. Yeah, because I think Ben would have graduated in '85, and I graduated in '87.
Man, if you guys could have messed up at the U of I, my goodness.
Yeah,
My goodness.
yeah. It you know, Chicago just had so much talent, man, that I think it doesn't get enough credit. You know, Chicago kids just don't get enough credit for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's some dogs in Chicago, and that's one reason why I started that podcast, All Ball Chicago, because, you know, a lot of us don't get the recognition that they deserve. So I wanted to give them a platform to speak. Kind of what you're doing too with your podcast too, and we need more podcasts like this to give certain athletes a platform to speak about what they want to speak about, not what someone's, you know, digging up some dirt on them or whatever it may be, but just a platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For you, Liv, you know, like you said, growing up in Chicago, you know, West Side, South Side, just Chicago in general, what was kind of like something that you kind of went through that kind of made you a better man or a better person that made you stay focused?
Well, like my dad again. I always go back to my dad. My dad. It was an article. It was crazy. It was an article in the paper when I was in high school. And they was saying all these great things about me, how I'm gonna be the next Magic and things like that. And my dad, like that, basically took the paper and folded it up and said, "Don't believe everything you read." And and it kind of put me in a place where I couldn't let those words in the paper define who I was. And my dad was a big part of that by saying, you know, they'll build you up and also break you down. So I stopped at the time. I said, I can't believe everything I read, even though I wanted to because it felt good. So that kind of even killed me a little bit. Like my dad was like, no, you can't get too high. You can't get too low. Just stay even killed. You know, don't assume you're better than anyone. You know, let your game play, let your game speak for itself. So I never talked trash. I never did any of that. So I owe a lot of that to my dad.
Absolutely. Now, Liv, this right here is probably my favorite question to ask, especially people from Chicago, because you just never know where they're going to go with it. For you, Liv, if I was to say, I want you to bring me 5 people all time for you to bring to the gym that just going to run with you, you met your 5 up against anybody, who would be your 5 all time from Chicago?
Woo! Now, man, that's a tough one, boy. And I don't want to leave nobody off, but you got to because it's only 5. But I'm gonna start off with uh, Isaiah Thomas as my PG
Okay.
Then again, Tim Hardaway is my dude. So that's what I'm saying, man. It's like, whew, but I'll ride with Zeke on that one.
Okay.
Then I got to put Big Mark in there too, Mark Aguirre.
Mm.
Uh, and myself, that's three.
There you go.
I got to put my big fella in there. I got a big fella, man. And he just don't get his just due. Ephraim Winters. Ephraim Winters, who played at King High School. He was an All-American, McDonald All-American as well. So who I got? I got myself. I got Zeke. I got Mark. And I got Ephraim Winters. So I'm missing one more. I'm missing one more guy. And that's got to be Ben Wilson. So I'll put that 5 against any 5.
I might have to put my money on that one too.
I'll put that 5 against any 5 any day.
Man, for you, Liv, as far as basketball, what has it taught you that kind of carry into everyday life?
Well, and that's what I do because I teach, basketball here, and I tell a lot of my students and a lot of my kids who's in my program that I wasn't thinking about playing basketball as a career. It just gave me structure. And a lot of times you look at certain things, you got to be on time for practice. You got to be disciplined enough to understand what's going on. You got to understand what's going on. You got to go out there and implement what the coach is telling you. So it's the same thing as like a job, just like a regular job. You got to understand manager when you're working, and you got to coach in basketball. So I use that, in everyday life. I have to show up on time. I have to be ready. I have to be prepared. If you're not, then you will get left behind. So I tell my kids this all the time. Be prepared, do your homework, study the game, understand that, it may not go your way all the time, but you can get through the day, if you do the way you're supposed to.
Absolutely. Liv, who you got for the finals? You got Warriors, you got Celtics. Who you rocking with?
Man, I love big, 6'8" players that can handle that ball. So you already know where I'm going with this. I love Jason Tatum's game, man. Jason Tatum is the next, big thing, But then on the flip side, you can't look past, Steph and Clay. Those boys can shoot that ball. And then you got Jordan Poole, who's joining. And I think it's going to be a great series. But when it's all said and done, it might be Golden State again.
Yeah,
it might be Golden State again. But I got to stay, like I like that young fella. And I want him, but I just think, Golden State, gonna pull it out.
Absolutely. Last one I have for you, Liv, is, who would you like to see on my platform that can kind of tell their story a little bit, kind of give some knowledge to the people that, don't really know everything, from the outside looking in, that can kind of help, the youth, and their story.
Man, I would say Ronnie Fields, man. If you haven't had Ronnie Fields on yet, Ronnie Fields will be a good one to have on, man, because he definitely has a story, because he was that next dude, that everybody was talking about in high school, how he used to jump and dunk over cats, man. Yeah. And I got the opportunity to watch some of that, man, and I was like, he is a spectacular, he can put some people in the building, with his. So he would be definitely one. If you can get him on, man, that would be definitely one. Ronnie Fields.
Definitely. Liv, I'm big on giving people their flowers. I just want to say you're a legend. You're an icon. You inspire people like me. Who want to do a podcast that's big on sports. So I just want to say, you're a legend, Liv. Just want to let you know that. All love from me to you. We'll definitely stay in touch. We'll definitely have to do a part 2 real soon or something like that.
No doubt, man. D Willow, make sure you guys go check out my man, all right? He's doing his thing.
Man, appreciate you, Liv. I'll stay in touch with you.
No doubt. Peace.
All right. Peace.
Gone.